Hi, I'm Randy Nesse from the Arizona State University Center for Evolution and Medicine. My guest today is John Pepper from the National Cancer Institute in Washington, and he has some very interesting things to say about special reasons why humans get cancer. How long have you been at NCI now, John?
It's been just 5 years.
But you came from being an evolutionary biologist full-time.
That's correct, yep.
And before that, studying dolphins and mole rats and cooperation.
Yep.
So what do studies of cooperation have to do with cancer?
Well, the classic question about cooperation for biologists, especially evolutionary biologists, is that if Darwin was right that it's competition that drives evolution, and we believe that he was right, if evolution is driven by competition, then how can it produce traits of cooperation? If I can gain advantage by taking advantage of you.
You would never do that.
Well, if I didn't, I would lose.
Maybe I don't know as well as I thought.
If I'm going to leave my genes in the next generation more successfully than anybody else, I'm going to have to break a few eggs to make that omelet. I'm sorry, Randy.
So if we were both cancer cells, and I was kind of a nice guy cell, and I didn't reproduce that much, but I did nice things to make you reproduce more, it would seem to me that automatically your kind would reproduce and take over my kind, and my kind would go away.
That's what Darwin said about organisms, and the same logic applies to cancer cells. Yes.
So they're really evolving.
Exactly. At first, it seemed like there might be some sort of a metaphor where the way cells inside the body behave is almost parallel to Darwinian evolution process. But on closer inspection, it turns out that no, it's not an analogy. It's not a metaphor. It is a precise description. Darwin described, without any reference to genes that he didn't know about, he described exactly what is required to drive evolution by natural selection. There have to be differences in the capacities to survive and reproduce.
So there's a bunch of different kinds of cancer cells in a single tumor.
Yes. Those differences have to be passed on to the next generation.
And those cells make new cells like themselves.
Right. So Darwin said, if those conditions are met in a population of individuals, the result will be, not the result might be, but the result, actually, it's a logical necessity that the result must be change over time. It's those heritable traits that increase survival and reproduction grow in frequency with every generation. That's a logical, necessary outcome.
So with regards to this nasty evolution happening within a tumor, it seems to me this inevitably means that the ones that reproduce the fastest will take over, and the ones that might be more helpful, even helpful growing the tumor, are going to get left behind.
That's right. So cells acquire differences. We all know that mutations can happen between generations, so that offspring might be a little different from their parents. But in this case, it's important to recognize that mutations can happen within a generation, within a tissue. So
it's right in your body that
yes,
they're happening.
There could be a mutation when my genes are copied to my children, but every time if a cell in my skin divides, it has to copy its DNA to do that. And if there's a copying error, then when that cell divides into two, those two daughter cells may have copying errors, mutations that make them different from the original
and maybe more
cell.
likely to be malignant?
One cell might, just by chance, end up being less capable of surviving and reproducing. That will have no importance. But if the other cell is more, because that cell and its descendants will gradually vanish. But if another cell happens by accident to get mutations to make it more capable of surviving and reproducing, it will start a lineage that will increase with every cell generation, not every human generation, but every cell generation.
So the essence of cancer is clusters of cells that vary within the tumor, and the ones that reproduce the fastest.
Yes.
And it gets worse and worse and worse.
And all the ones that were reproducing slower over past years are no longer there, no longer represented in our tissues. All the ones that are reproducing faster are all that are left by the time we look. So through many cell generations, which means a few years, or probably a few decades, this is continuing, a few decades could represent hundreds of cell generations. Over
Okay.
that time span, cells get better and better at surviving and reproducing. If cells become so good at this that they don't die when they ought to, they're really hard to kill, and they divide like crazy, the word for that is cancer.
That's cancer. Okay.